If you're an aspiring real estate investor, you might be wondering, how do I get started with my first real estate investment? How do I actually buy that first property for investment purposes? So in today's lesson, I'm going to go over a lot of different requirements that you may not be aware of and some different strategies that you can use to build out your real estate portfolio. Hey, it's Robert Weinberg, and on this channel we empower people to take control of their future through expert mortgage and financial strategies. In this lesson today, we're going to be talking about first-time real estate investment strategies. So if you're watching this video, you might already own your first home that you're living in, or you might be renting a house and looking to buy an investment property. So we're going to talk about some different requirements and strategies that you can use to accomplish those goals. Now, first of all, it's important you understand some of the requirements of buying an investment property versus an owner-occupied property, because they are very different. An investment property mortgage is going to have higher credit score requirements. So whereas with an owner-occupied home, you can get away with a credit score maybe in the high 500s or low 600s, on an investment property, really the minimum bar that you're going to need to hit is going to be around that high 600s, like 680 to 700. If you're a little below that, there might be opportunity, but ideally, you're going to be in that high 600s to low 700s in order to get decent terms on the loan. The next thing is reserve requirements. So when you're buying an investment property, the underwriter of your mortgage is going to want to see that you've got money somewhere just in case the tenant doesn't make their payment to you, and you're still going to be able to make that mortgage payment. So usually they're going to want to see at least 6 months reserves. So the way you're going to figure that out is what your mortgage payment is going to be with property taxes, insurance, and principal and interest. Multiply that out by 6 months, and that's going to be the minimum that they're going to want to see. If you already have multiple properties, they're going to do that calculation on all your properties together in order to find your reserve requirement. Most common places people have that money is retirement, 401ks, IRAs, different CDs, money market accounts, savings accounts, that sort of thing. But really any depository or investment account will do. So talk to your mortgage advisor to make sure that you've got those reserves taken care of ahead of time so you don't have any issues during the processing of your loan. All right, next thing is a strategy that you can use to actually get an investment property in your portfolio. Something that a lot of people do is they'll buy an owner-occupied home up front, like we'll talk about here in a minute, like a multifamily or even a single-family home, so they'll get those really good terms, low interest rate, low down payment, and then after a year, a couple years, they want to move up and buy something else or change their situation with where they live, and then they will take that property that they once lived in and turn that into an investment property. That's a really common strategy that you can use, and you may want to think about, especially if it's only like your first home. It may not be somewhere that you're going to live in for, decades. It may just be somewhere you're going to live for a year or two. Now keep in mind, most owner-occupied mortgages require that you live in the place for at least 12 months. So you need to, at least live there for that timeline, or else you could be committing mortgage fraud and get in trouble with the mortgage company. So just something to keep in mind. Now, down payment requirements are where a lot of people get caught up with this investment property issue and getting their portfolio built out in real estate. So if you're going to buy a single family investment property, right now as we record this in fall of 2020, most of the mortgage programs are going to require you put down a 20% down payment on a single family investment property. That is in addition to coming up with the closing costs, which can range depending on where you're living and whatnot, where you're buying. Anywhere from 3 to 5% of the purchase price can be closing costs. So again, 20% down minimum for a single family investment property. If you're looking at 2 to 4 unit properties, which a lot of investors love, you're going to be looking at least 25% down plus closing costs. So you can see these down payments can get pretty large, and you're going to want to have time to save money or partner with someone in order to get the money needed to do this. Now, unlike actual owner-occupied investment properties, you can't get gifts. So you can't ask a family member to give you money unless they're going to partner with you on that deal and be on the contract, be on the mortgage with you. They can't just gift you money like you can with a lot of the other programs that we've talked about where you're going to live in the house. A really great strategy that I've been talking to a lot of people about lately is an FHA multifamily home where you're going to live in one unit and rent the others out. The great thing about this is it goes back to what we said earlier about converting an owner-occupied to an investment, because you can live in, if you have a 4-unit, you can live in 1 unit and rent 3 out. Most of the time, the 3 you're renting out will cover the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and all that stuff, which can be a great situation. And then after a couple years, year, 2, 3 years, you can then move out of that unit, go buy yourself a single family or another property to live in, and then you can rent that unit out, okay? Now you've got owner-occupied, or what was once an owner-occupied home turned into an investment property, and really have the best of both worlds. Probably the biggest advantage of using this FHA strategy is that you only have to put a minimum of 3.5% down. So FHA is the only type of loan where on a multi-family 2 to 4 unit, you can put down a really low down payment. Like I said, 3.5%. But the caveat is you have to live in 1 unit for at least 12 months after closing. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, next thing I want to talk to you guys about is a cash out refinancing strategy. I've talked about this in another video lesson. I did a whole entire presentation on this, but it's important that you see it's a very viable strategy if you have other real estate. Maybe you just have 1 other property, but you've built some equity in it over the years. You may have a great opportunity to cash equity out of that home and use that money towards the down payment and closing costs on this next property. So it's a really great thing. I see a lot of real estate investors just recycling the equity, using that over and over again. If that's of interest to you, check out my other video from a couple months back where I go into this strategy a little more in depth. Another great thing you can do is borrow against other assets. Maybe you have a retirement portfolio, an investment portfolio, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. A lot of people don't realize there are programs that allow you to borrow a percentage of that portfolio without actually selling anything, and you can use that money for whatever you need, in this case, for building out that real estate portfolio. So check with your investment advisor and or your brokerage provider to see what options they may offer for you to borrow against those assets in order to build out and build wealth for yourself. Now, the really important thing I want to really give you the impression of here at the end of this lesson is it is more complicated, as you can tell, buying an investment property versus just a home you're going to live in. So I highly, highly recommend you connect with a local mortgage professional, a real advisor in your area that has the expertise and the experience to be able to guide you through this process. They're going to be able to pin down the numbers on what credit score minimum you need, what reserve requirements there are, if any of these other strategies may work for you. And you're going to want to talk to them at least 3 to 6 months ahead of time. I've even had people contacting me a year before they're ready to actually pull the trigger so they can get all these other pieces of the puzzle in line and get a pre-qualification and ultimately send their documents in and get a pre-approval done for their first real estate investment. So I hope that this has given you value. I hope it's given you just a lot of motivation when it comes to building that real estate portfolio for yourself, because real estate is a great way to build wealth, but there are some tricks to the trade. So if it's your first time watching here, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. Also click the bell to get notified on our future content. If I can be of assistance to you or anyone that you know, feel free to reach out to me by call, text, or private message. We'll talk to you soon, and take care.